All right, I just want to give a quick observation on some of the things I saw with this Normanville Type A overdrive unit. I had the one in the XK150 and did not take it apart when I had it all out, which I should have. So I had to do a little in-frame work to it to get it to work, which was a miracle. But anyway, I ended up pulling this Healy trans in overdrive out of storage to take it apart to actually see for myself the way some of this stuff was. So I just want to go over a couple things that I did not see in the millions of videos I watched, nor the shop manuals. So anyway, for those concerned, I rigged up the dial indicator here, and I was just curious about what the travel was on this eccentric for the pump plunger, and it's 155 thousandths. Okay, so moving along. One of the first things that I noticed when I took this apart is that how kind of deceiving these videos are and the actual size of this thing. It's really, when you take it apart, it's amazing how small and light this thing is. I mean, I think they're brilliant, but I was amazed on how little these parts were. Like, for example, okay, here's a quarter for reference. These bars here that hold the servo pistons, I mean, look how little. These bars on some of these videos look tremendous, but they're really not. And these actuating pistons here are really not that big. Okay, so here's your quarter for reference. I mean, you know what I mean? Okay, so let's move on to taking out this accumulator. I just saw these people making all these tools and apparatus, really getting carried away with this, which is fine if that's what you want to do, but sometimes simpler is better, less is more. So I ended up taking this dowel, right? It took me a couple minutes to take this hardwood dowel and just taper this end of it just enough to do this, right? A couple taps pulled this thing right out, right? Made out of wood, so it didn't score any of this up. These things are not in there a tight press fit. The only thing holding them in is the O-ring. So my 2 cents is whether the O-ring is hard or soft, it doesn't matter. This thing will come right out. So you don't need to take the time and build all these wedge anchor, slide pull, threaded rod pullers. Okay, it's just not press fit in there. It's only the O-ring. And I ended up making this one out of a piece of exhaust pipe because the one in the XK was the old school one with the 2 springs in it, had a different diameter. I ended up finding this piece of exhaust pipe. I just made 2 slits in it so it had like a little bit of a spring to it. I sanded all the rough edges off, did the same thing as a wood dowel, tapped it down in there and was able to pull that right out of there. So I pulled 2 accumulators out of 2 different vehicles and used these without any dogfight. So your choice, you know, depending on how bored you are. Okay. And here's another one that they don't tell you or talk about or whatever. Could not figure out whether or not this piston plunger would go on up through here like this, or if this piece had to be dropped in from the beginning. Nobody wanted to talk about that. So there's a few things I noticed about this. It's a very simple arrangement here, but it does only go in one way. So if you look on this roller assembly, there's a flat on this side, and that's what contacts this guide button here and keeps this from rotating, so it's square on the cam, the eccentric cam there. The other thing is, I didn't realize the inlet port for the oil is that right here, and that sits right about at this level here. So I guess it is kind of possible that if enough sludge and nonsense build up in here, it could block this port. Okay, and here's where the check ball sits right here, so that it pumps, and then, you know, that ball is what makes it actually be able to pump, and that's accessed through that area right here in this housing. Okay, I also made these 2 guide pins, what they show But what they don't really talk about is that I think these are 1032. I did not feel like using like 1032 all thread or any of that nonsense. I machined these out and I made the shank part of these about 15 thousandths bigger, so it's a drag fit right in here. Okay. My point was I wanted this thing to be completely as square as possible so that this check ball rode on this seat evenly and not off to one side, and it would wear it goofy and start leaking, and then it would work like a piece of crap. So anyway, that's my deal with that. And I slotted the end so I could get a screwdriver and take them out because they are a little bit tight. So my question also is, I've seen so many of these people with the wire up through here and the thread coming through the gasket area where they pull on the plunger and all that. So here's my question. What would be the downfall to assemble this whole overdrive unit and that the last thing you do is put this up through like this? Right, let's see here. Let me engage my hole here for my guide pin. Okay. Where am I at here now? This is like this. Come on. Don't be an azul. Get in there. Damn it. Okay, like that. I don't understand why you couldn't assemble it that way. Wouldn't matter where the eccentric is, right? This thing's going to give whenever it hits. By that time, it's all up in there. Right here, it's like this. It can't really rotate. And then this is driven up through the pump body. So I don't understand why you can't do it that way. Right? Look, it fits right down through there. So my 2 cents is, next time I go to assemble one of these, which I didn't get the opportunity because I did not have to take this pump out of the XK because it was working, I'm wondering why you can't do that. Okay? Before this becomes a press fit at all, this plunger is right here. Right? And I don't understand if it's in there and you have these guide pins in here and it's squared up. Right? I don't see why you can't slide this on here and have that do that, and then you finish driving it the rest of the way through and this spring compresses. So somebody's going to have to explain to me why that won't work, because I think it will. So anyway, that's about the end of my observations there. Rest of it's pretty straightforward. On this brake ring, like a lot of people tell you, do not see any kind of gasket. Okay, so I think they use some kind of sealer here from the factory. I forget what they call it. They had some British term for this type of sealer they use. It's kind of similar to, I think, to that Indian head gasket sealer. Right, not silicone, not a gasket. You know what I mean? Maybe Loctite 218 might work, but seems like they just put this kind of Indian head sealer on here. So anyway, I think that's about the end of my dissertation there. Okay, 10-4 out.